right, thanks everyone for being here. My name is Kippy Fleming. I am the Program Director for Conflict Management at ACU Dallas, and I am really excited to hear this presentation today. And I think it's going to be one that everyone is going to be interested in. I think it will end up being one of our most popular presentations that we have. I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Kathy Carroll. Kathy is an assistant professor and the program director for the online BS in Health and Human Performance here at ACU Dallas. She received her bachelor's degree from Southwestern Oklahoma State University in pharmacy, her master's degree from Texas Women's University in kinesiology and exercise physiology, and her doctorate from the University of Toledo in health and human performance and exercise physiology. So she's an expert on what she's going to talk about today. Kathy worked for several years as a pharmacist before a career change that led her into higher ed. She taught natural science and exercise science at Ohio Valley University and served as department chair for exercise and sports science at Drury University during 12 of her 18 years there. Kathy has a passion for teaching and a heart for helping people and is excited to be serving in her role here. And so I would like to have everybody welcome Dr. Kathy Carroll.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here today. I like talking about these things. And so thank you for coming. I know it's the last one of the summer. We are getting protective of our time. So thank you for taking a little bit of time out today to come to this. And so I titled this, I want to be fit, but all of us want to be fit, but often we follow it, but this is going on and I just can't work it in. So that's why I spend a little bit of time today talking about how can we do this in a reasonable manner. So my goal today is this is what we'll all be able to do after this program. You'll all have the level of fitness to do something like this. Well, maybe not quite that, but things like spending time with family and friends and being active and walking together or riding bikes together or sitting around the table eating healthy meals together. That's what I really want you to think about is fitness really doesn't, I mean, yes, it looks like the first slide, but it's much, much bigger than that. And this is what we want to be talking about. What does it look like to be healthy and fit and maybe get away from some of the stereotypes we've had of exercise and how we can do it in little incremental pieces. So if you were to go take a survey, most people are going to say being fit or well is important. It should be a priority. But then look around. Most people aren't fit and very healthy looking in our country. So where is the disconnect? Somewhere there's a disconnect with what we believe and know to be true and what we actually do. Well, I've broken it up into two main components. We could have more than this, but two major components are our diet and nutrition and our physical activity and our exercise. So we're going to spend a little bit of time today looking at these, just talking about these, and again, think about things we can do incrementally to see benefits. Many times I think people think about being fit or well, it's overwhelming. I can't do it. We want to talk about what are some steps we can take to do that. And so talk a little bit about nutrition. I'm sure you've heard your plate should always be colorful, have a lot of color in your plate, have lots of fruits and vegetables and a variety of colors. And that's a very good basic way to think about it. So let's spend a few minutes here just thinking about some real basics of nutrition and diet. All right, let's talk a little bit about our macronutrients, those nutrients we need in relatively large amounts, macro. That's our carbohydrates, our fats, and our proteins. Our carbohydrates are our sugars. When people talk about, I'm not eating sugar or I'm eating too much sugar, we're talking about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates give us 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate. And most people would recommend somewhere in the range of 45 to 65% of our diet, of our total caloric intake should come from carbohydrates, primarily complex carbohydrates. I'll mention a little bit more about that in a moment. Now, let me just give the disclaimer. You can read some information out there that these numbers percentages may be slightly different, but it's just kind of general rules of thumb. These are kind of the percentages we need to be thinking about in our diet. For our fats or our lipids, they're calorie dense. We get 9 calories per gram of fat. And we want to be somewhere in the 20 to 35% of our total caloric intake should be from fats. Now, that's part of the reason we tend to think, oh, I should eat fat. There's lots of calories. There are more calories per gram than there are carbohydrates, but we need fat calories. We need calories from all of these. And so again, somewhere around a third of our diet, or a little bit less maybe, should be from fats. And then proteins also give us 4 calories per gram, and about 10 to 35% of our total calorie intake should be from proteins. If you are a meat eater, you're going to get your protein intake. It is not hard to get protein intake if you're a meat eater. If you're a strict vegetarian, you have to be more intentional about it. And so you can certainly do it. You just need to be more intentional. One of the things I want you to take home from this today is that food isn't bad. Food is not the enemy. Carbohydrates are not the enemy. Fats are not the enemy. There are some diets out there that are very low on one or the other of those. And we don't have time today to go into a lot of the different diets, but the food, the carbohydrates, the fat, they're not the enemy. Our body needs all of these macronutrients. Again, they are macronutrients, nutrients we need in fairly large amounts. We need fuel to run the car. It's the same analogy. I need the food, I need the fuel from these macronutrients to run the car. Now, do we sometimes get these percentages mixed up? Most definitely, but we need all of these to make the car run most efficiently. So what are some good sources of carbohydrates? Well, as I mentioned, there's complex carbohydrates, there's simple carbohydrate. The complex carbohydrate have other nutritional value to them. They have fiber, other nutritional value. And that's things like our whole grains, our fruits, vegetables, dairy, things that have additional nutritional value. The simple carbohydrates are things like the candy and the donuts and the cookies and the cake, those things we like, but there's just not much nutritional value other than they are sugar. Now, they're quick sugars, and that's why you see them in races and stuff to give you quick energy. But we want the majority of our diet coming from complex carbohydrates. For our fats, places like fish, cheeses, nuts, avocados, eggs, whole eggs, including the yolk, yogurt, full fat yogurt, and notice chocolate, dark chocolate is a good source of fat. So, and it's also a good way if you've got a sweet tooth to kind of satisfy that sweet tooth by having a little bit of dark chocolate. Proteins, as I said, the meats, fish, beans, yogurt, nuts, you're going to get your protein requirements. And so just be sure you're getting some of all of these on a daily basis. Well, many of us, maybe most of us at some point in our adult life are going to try to lose weight. We're going on a weight loss journey. Not everybody, but many of us will at some point. Or we get to a point and we want to maintain our weight. And so just some strategies to think about with weight loss. First off, if we are embarking on a weight loss journey, most of us want to lose a lot of weight and we want to do it really quickly. That's what we would like. But that's not the reality for most of us. Are there some diets out there that you can do that with? Yes, but most of them are not sustainable. To be sustainable, weight loss needs to be slower and more methodical to be sustainable. Any of us can do something very short term and drop a lot of weight, but many times it's going to come back. So the idea on weight loss is to shoot for somewhere between a ½ pound to 2 pounds per week. Now, I can tell you from personal experience, a ½ pound per week seems excruciatingly slow if you're trying to lose weight. But again, you want something that is sustainable, that is doable. And losing as little as 10% of your body weight can be beneficial for your health. So again, we lose weight for different types of reasons, some for health, performance, whatever, but we can see benefits in health by a relatively small reduction in our body weight. You've probably heard people talk about clean eating for just most of the time we eat healthy foods. We don't eat a lot of processed foods, high fat, extra sugar, extra carbohydrate, but we eat clean for the majority of the time. Now, again, another reality is most of us will not eat clean 100% of the time. Again, I'm not saying that's impossible, Some of you may come very, very close to that, but most of us won't do something 100% of the time. And so a lot of dietitians, nutritionists have what they call the 80-20 rule, that 80% of the time we eat well, we eat clean, we eat the healthy, the good carbs, the good fats, protein. And then 20% of the time if you maybe use the word cheat, I don't especially like cheating, because then you get the idea that food is bad, I'm having a cheat, but you don't eat as healthy that 20% of the time. But if 80% of the time you can eat pretty healthy, you're on a good road there. As I mentioned earlier, whatever method you choose for weight loss has to be sustainable. If you can't keep on it and do it maybe for most of your life, you're going to have those fluctuations. Most of us are going to have those fluctuations. And so, yes, I may be able to do something and drop a lot of weight very quickly, but I can't keep that up. But if I can learn to eat cleaner majority of the time, healthier most of the time, then it's sustainable. And I would recommend that you track what you eat at some point. Now, you may say, oh, that's tedious. It is a bit tedious, but there are so many apps out there now to help you track what you eat. I've used MyFitnessPal. I like it a lot. It's a free one. It's fairly easy to use. It's a little tedious getting started when you first start putting food in, but like everything else that we use for tracking tracks us, is like, oh yeah, you ate this yesterday. Are you eating this again? And you just pull it over. So it gets easier. So I would encourage you, at least for a period of time, to track what you eat. I can almost guarantee that most people are eating more calories than they think. If you ask people to self-report how many calories they eat per day, they almost always underreport it. So take a few days, a week, track what you eat, kind of get a handle where you are, and then go from there, even if you don't do it on a long-term basis. I know people who do track their food long-term. It's like anything else. Once you can kind of get in the habit, then you may not need to be as specific on tracking it once you know what it looks like to eat well most of the time. Now, shopping wisely, you've heard some of these tips. One is make a list. That does several things for you. It decreases your time in the store. You have what you want to get, you go in and you get it. It keeps you from making impulse buys. So it's likely to save you money, perhaps save you from eventually throwing out the food that you got. And so just make a list, you know what you want, you get home, you have the right ingredients. It just helps in a number of different ways. Ideally, shopping the perimeter of the grocery store is preferable. You may have heard that. If you've not heard that, you may think, well, what does that mean? Why does that make a difference? The perimeter of the store is where you find your whole foods. You find your fruits, your vegetables, your dairy. You find those foods that don't have a food label on them. They don't have a food label because they are whole foods. They don't need a list of ingredients because they're whole foods. And so again, most nutritionists would say, try to do the bulk of your shopping around the perimeter of the store. The more interior parts of the store is where you find your more processed foods. Again, most of us are not going to eat entirely whole foods. We're going to eat some processed foods, but more foods, the whole foods are better for us. You've all heard the tip, don't shop hungry. There's a meme out on social media. I went to the grocery store hungry and now I'm the proud owner of aisle 6. So don't go when you're hungry. Again, you're going to spend more money. You're going to pick up those foods that aren't as healthy. You're going to grab that bag of cookies if you go hungry, or the extra chips, and you're going to spend more money. And so just don't shop when you're hungry. And then meal prepping. I don't know if you've ever done that. I've gone through periods where I've meal prepped, where you take a bit of time, usually on the weekend, most people do. You set aside 2 or 3 hours, like 2 or 3 hours, that's a lot. It is, but think about how much time you're using prepping during the week if you don't do it at one time on the weekend. And so meal prep, you buy supplies for the week, you figure out meals, and you basically make all your meals on a weekend. When I used to do this, I didn't do breakfast, but I meal prep for my lunch and supper, and I basically had all my meals for the week done on Saturday or Sunday. Saves a lot of time. You get to the end of your workday. What are we going to have for dinner? Are you bringing the kids home from wherever they've been? Got to get dinner ready. It's nice if it's in the freezer or the refrigerator, you pull it out, you've got food ready. And what do we tend to do when we're in a hurry? We grab what's fast. What's fast is usually not the healthiest. It's the microwave dinners that are not as healthy, perhaps. It's what goes together quickly, easy. That's not usually the healthiest. And so it's a good way to control what you eat, and it does save time in the long run. And again, it takes some practice, but you kind of get in the routine. And I hate to cook. I don't like to cook, but I would do meal prepping on the weekend, and man, it made my weekdays so much easier. I would still do breakfast. I could do that, but have my other meals ready. Lots of benefits to that. You might try for 1 or 2 meatless meals in your week. You may say, nope, I'm a meat eater, or I live with meat eater. That's not going to work. Again, it's a suggestion. Maybe try 1 meal and you try a variety of vegetables. Maybe you try some tofu. Tofu is good at kind of taking on flavors of other things it's cooked with. Again, just a suggestion, give that a try for a meal or 2. Do a little experimenting there. And as was already mentioned, when you have foods in boxes and cans, foods that have lots of ingredients on the label or a number of ingredients that you can't pronounce, those are not optimal foods that we want to be ingesting a lot. Some sources would say, don't buy anything that has more than 3 to 5 ingredients in it. That's pretty strict. I don't go by that, but if I'm looking at 2 items and one has 3 ingredients and one has 10, I'm probably going to opt for the 3 ingredient. Even something as simple as peanut butter. Peanut butter basically should have peanuts in it and maybe a little bit of salt. A lot of peanut butter has extra processing in it. And so foods with fewer ingredients tend to be better. Just a quick example, I like ramen noodles. Ramen noodles have very little nutritional benefit and they don't go bad. You know, foods that don't go bad typically aren't very healthy for us. So just think about those things. Again, try to reduce the numbers of ingredients of things you're buying. If you don't already, please take a little bit of time to think about reading food labels, nutrition labels. Here's a couple of examples. The one on the left, what sticks out there? Oh, there's 230 calories per serving. I can eat that box. No, read a little closer. There are 8 servings in that box. And so you've got now 8 times 230. Be careful of how many servings are in things that you're eating. The one on the right actually shows you set it up a little bit differently. Per serving is 240, but there's 2 servings in this container, so you've got 440. So you've got basic information on calories. You've also got macronutrient information there, your fats, your carbohydrates, your proteins. If you're concerned about cholesterol, got information there on that. Salt content, sodium content, something a lot of us may be concerned about. So get used to at least glancing at food labels. Again, it doesn't mean you have to spend hours in the grocery store, but compare items. Which one seems a little bit better? Again, even small changes can make big differences. So I've got one that seems a little bit healthier. Let's go with that. And then just a little bit about hydration. How much water should I be drinking during the day? Well, we've all heard the recommendation you should drink 8 glasses of 8 ounces of water per day. It's about 2 liters per day. That's an easy one to remember, 8 of 8. And so we've all heard that. There are several ways to think about how much fluid you should take in per day. I actually, my favorite is the next one, to drink half your body weight in ounces per day. So if you've got a 150-pound person and you think half of that per day, so that person should be shooting for about 75 ounces. So that takes into account size. I'm 5 feet tall. I'm not going to need quite as much fluid as somebody that's 6'2". So it takes into account some body weight. Now, again, you may say, I drink a gallon per day. I used to have students who would try to drink 2 gallons per day. Again, you know, more is not always better. We get those things in our mind, more is better. More is not always better. But a good, like I said, I really like the idea, try to shoot for about half your body weight in ounces per day. Now, thirst is not a great indicator. Most of us tend to drink when we're thirsty, especially if you're outside, working, exercising. Right now, especially Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, it's miserably hot. And so if we're outside doing things, waiting till we're thirsty to drink is not a good indicator. The thirst mechanism kicks in after dehydration has already begun. So you're already starting to get dehydrated when that thirst mechanism kicks in. Personal example, yesterday, and I know these things. I was out for a long run yesterday morning, fairly early, and I had fluids with me, but they were in the car. I didn't get back to the car as soon as I should have. I started to get really thirsty, started to get dehydrated. By the time I got back to my car and get the fluid, I can't catch up. I'm still thirsty. And now what does all that fluid do? It sits in my stomach and it doesn't move out to the tissues. So now I'm nauseated. So thirst is not a good indicator. You want to drink before you are thirsty, especially if you're outside in a warm or hot environment. Now, other things impact how much you should drink per day. Your fitness level plays a role. Environment, again, right now it's so miserably hot in the part of the country where many of us live. And so you're going to need to drink more than you do when it's a cooler environment. A good kind of rule of thumb is to use the color of your urine as an indicator. Urine should be a pale yellow. If your urine is dark yellow, almost orange, you are dehydrated. You need to get some fluids in you. Well, what if your urine is not even a pale yellow? It's almost clear. Well, that can be problematic too. You can get overhydrated. There is a condition called water intoxication. More technical name is hyponatremia, low salt content. What do we lose when we sweat? We lose salt and we lose water. If I only replace it with water, what have I done to my salt content? I've diluted it. A low salt content in the body is very serious. Hyponatremia is more serious than dehydration in an immediate situation. So yes, you can get overhydrated. So that's why I say, just say, I'm going to drink a gallon a day, or I'm going to drink 2 gallons a day. That's not necessarily a good thing. So you don't want to get overhydrated either. And it's not real easy to do, but we've realized, the exercise scientists realized it's easier than we once thought. So you don't want to get overhydrated either. All right, let me pause for just a moment. Any questions for me? You can either, if you put in the chat, Kippy's going to tell me what you're putting in there. If you'd like to unmute and ask a question, or if you don't, if you want to wait to the end, that's fine too. But I'm going to pause for just a moment here.
Kathy, I have, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Julie.
Really quick question. Thanks so much. I've never even heard of overhydration. Are there any other symptoms? Like, is urine the only indicator of that?
Well, what makes this even trickier is overhydration looks very much like dehydration in initial stages. And that's what makes it actually kind of dangerous. One of the places they discovered problems was in marathon races where people, you know, the traditional thing is drink, drink, drink every aid station. And they were finding out people were coming in overhydrated, but you tend to get maybe a little bit dizzy, disoriented, can't think as clearly. That's what dehydration looks like too. And so it's hard to know. It is hard to diagnose. So that's the bad part. The good thing is it's not real likely that a recreational athlete, recreational exerciser is going to get that. I'm not saying that's you. I'm just saying in general, it's not super easy to happen, but it's not as difficult as we once thought. But, you know, if you've been drinking a lot and you start to feel maybe like I've got too much, I can't think real clearly, I just don't feel very good, that might be an indicator. And then if you also have basically completely clear urine, you might think, okay, maybe I need to back off a little bit on the fluid. That help, Julie?
Yes, thank you.
Kathy, we have a couple of questions in the chat. Karen asked, does the liquid need to be water? What about other liquids?
Yeah, other liquids are good. A lot of liquids have water as part of them. I'm a big fan of sports drinks, something with some electrolytes in them. But even things like, you know, some, you know, in Texas, Coke products, I mean, soda pop products, even those things have some benefit as well. Again, you don't want to have all your fluid intake be other fluids, but yes, other drinks are added in is fine as well. Again, you don't want that to be your primary source, but other things added into that is fine. Juices, milk, and you're going to get some fluid in foods as well. So it doesn't have to be all water, no. And in people who don't like to drink water, flavor your water some, put something in it to help you drink, get one of those water bottles to help you to drink, but no, it doesn't have to all be water, Karen.
And KK asked also along the same line, does sparkling water like LaCroix, is it LaCroix, count toward those 8 glasses, those other liquids?
It does, yeah. Again, when you start getting other beverages, just be careful what's the carbohydrate or sugar content in some of those. But yes, those fluids, those are cumulative. What some of us tend to do is, many of you know from Zoom meetings, I'm a big Diet Coke, Diet Pepsi drinker, and I could get all my fluid from that. That's not what we want to be doing. And so, but yes, adding those things in, flavored water, Propel water, all those kinds of things, anything that will encourage you to drink. Again, you don't want to be drinking 2 gallons of coffee per day. That's not what we're aiming for, but to basically getting fluid intake and any kind of flavored water and sports drinks, those types of things. Just be careful what else is in there that you may not want a lot of. Is there a lot of sugar in it? Is there a lot of calorie? Straight coffee is one thing. When you start getting the fancy lattes that I don't know how to order at Starbucks, then you get into 400 and 500 calories, those sorts of things. Yeah, different sorts of fluids, variety, that's great.
And Kathy, I'll also ask, what about, how does caffeine impact hydration?
Good question. Caffeine has some diuretic properties, which it can induce urination. And I've read some opposing views on this, but what I've read mostly of late is that moderate amounts of caffeine is not going to hurt you. And so, again, you probably don't want to be drinking caffeine all day long for various reasons, but to have some caffeine in is not, from what I've read more lately, not as maybe damaging as we once thought it was, that you really need to stay away from the caffeine. So in moderate amounts, it does not seem to be as problematic as what I read that it used to be considered. Great questions. If you have some more, should have a little bit of time here at the end to ask some additional questions. All right, let's go to what's really my favorite thing to talk about. I mean, that's what I am. I'm an exercise physiologist, so I love talking about exercise. And I just a couple of pictures. I love this guy that's doing push-ups with this big old dog on his back, and people out walking their dogs. Those of you who are dog owners, they help us exercise. I don't have a dog right now, but they help us exercise because they need to get out. And so, there's articles out there just about owning a dog can help you become more fit because they need to be walked. So let's talk some about exercise. All right, well, we probably all know there are health problems inherent with sedentary lifestyles, with inactive lifestyles. We've all heard the term couch potato. When people sit around, we don't do anything. We're in front of a TV or computer, we're screen time. We're not doing anything in our leisure time except sitting around. We're familiar with the term couch potato. Probably a lot of us saying, that's not me. I exercise, I move around. Well, there's a new term, relatively new term, last 10 or 12 years that's out there now called active couch potato. What's an active couch potato? Well, an active couch potato is someone who meets the physical activity guidelines, but still has a sedentary job. Okay, so we're going to talk about what are those exercise guidelines. They meet those, but their job is still sedentary. I'm going to guess most of us on this call would fit that part of it. We have a sedentary job. Most of us sit in front of a screen the majority of the day. And so around 2010, there started being papers being published. We've got and this is a separate set of problems from not exercise, not all. So even if I'm getting all my quote exercise in, if I'm also sitting 6 to 8 hours in front of a screen, this is a separate set of risk factors. So this is important because probably most of us on here we're in front of our screens most of the day. So even if I'm reaching my activity goals and I have a sedentary problem, we've got some risk factors here. So if I go out on the street corner here and I start asking people, do you think exercise is important? Do you think it's beneficial? Almost to a person, they're going to tell me yes. And then if I start saying, well, do you exercise or why? Well, then you're going to get some backpedaling. So for just a moment, and I'm going to ask people again to monitor the chat, or you can just unmute and say, what are some things that you see as benefits of exercise? What comes to your mind as a benefit of exercise? Feel free to unmute or put it in the chat.
Got quite a bit here. Julie says more energy. Brandy says mental wellness. Stephanie, feeling great. Nancy, stress reduction. Linnea, sorry, it's going so fast. Oh my goodness. Mental well-being. Avery says, I was also going to say energy level. Thinking is clearer, Nanette says. Dina says it clears my mind. KK, cardiovascular benefits. Stress reducer, better doctor appointments, better mood, self-care.
Wow, you guys are great. I've put a few up here. You've come up with these and more. Yeah, it improves our cardiovascular health. It improves our blood pressure. It improves our VO2 max. You may not be familiar with that term. That's our aerobic capacity, how well I can perform, what's the most highest level I can perform at. Gives us more stamina. Improves our mental health that several of you mentioned. Cognitive function. There's studies on both kids and business people. Kids tend to perform better on tests if they've had some exercise before they go take a test. There's studies in the business literature of business people doing some physical activity before making major decisions. And they've seen people tend to make better decisions when they've had some exercise. Exercise is linked with helping to decrease risk of some types of cancers. We feel better about ourselves. It can be involved with weight loss maintenance. You all listed several things not on here. It's almost not endless, but there's just many, many, many benefits to exercise. And so we know this intuitively, we know this personally, but then, okay, do you exercise regularly? Well, no. And then why? So my next question is, what do you suppose are reasons people give for not exercising? So drop those in the chat.
Time, Catherine says, and Stephanie, and I would add that as well. Time, Jackie, tired. Physical pain, fear of injury.
Those are great.
First and quit.
All right, let's talk about some of those. Those are great. Several of you mentioned time. Time is the #1 reason people give for not exercising. All right, let's talk about this just a moment. Are we busy people? Yes, of course, we're all busy. And so is time valuable? Yes. Again, I thank you for taking time to come here today. Time is important. It is something that we consider carefully. But think about this. What do we make time for? We make time for whatever is important to us. Whatever is a priority, we make time for. We find time, we create time somewhere in our schedule. So we make time for what's important to us. Exercise can be inconvenient. I may have to go somewhere. I have to go out of my house. I've got to do something. Again, it's kind of related to time. I got to find somewhere to do that. Maybe one of the hardest reasons, quote, and I put reasons, that there's really more excuses we use. I don't want to. That one's kind of hard to, somebody just doesn't want to. It may be hard to convince them otherwise. Exercise brings delayed benefits. I don't necessarily feel better tomorrow if I exercise today. In fact, I may have some body aches tomorrow if I exercise too hard today. Or when I go exercise, I may have a little bit hard time breathing for a little while. So the benefits are delayed. Some people say, I don't have the money to exercise. Well, you may not have money to go join a gym, or you may not have a gym, a lot of equipment in your home, but there are ways to exercise that don't require money or very little money, but even no money. there's ways to do that. I don't have access. Again, maybe you don't have access to a gym. Maybe you live in the heart of a downtown area and you don't feel safe walking outside. But again, there's ways to do it without, maybe the access we would like to have. Some people are self-conscious. They're afraid of it. They don't like the way they look. And again, there's some validity there, but there's some things we can do that you don't have to be around anybody if you don't want to be. I don't know how, or I'm afraid of getting hurt. We can work with that. If you acknowledge that, we can help with that. And again, we're going to talk about ways here in just a moment. You don't ever have to leave your home if you don't want to. For some of us, going to a gym, a fitness center is energizing and it motivates us. But if you're like, I don't want to be around people, we're going to talk about ways, how can I do it at home? And we're going to talk a little bit about different types of exercise, aerobic or cardio training, strength training, weightlifting, flexibility, stretching, and neuromotor, which you may not be familiar with, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. We throw out the word exercise prescription. Exercise prescription is much like when you go to the doctor and you get a prescription for medication. The doctor doesn't just say, oh yeah, you're sick, go take some medication. Doctor says you take this med and you take this dosage and this for this many times a day and this many days. You get some specificity for your situation. It should be the same with exercise. The more specific it can be for people, the better it is based on the person's starting level, based on their goals. You want it to be specific for the person. But there are some general guidelines, and that's what we're going to talk about today. What are some general exercise guidelines that we can use as starting points? All right, so for aerobic or cardio conditioning, you want to accumulate throughout the week, you want to accumulate 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise or 75 minutes of intense exercise or some combination. And you want to do this with exercises that work major muscle groups. So walking, running, swimming, dancing, cycling, rowing, any of those things are using major muscle groups, and you're trying to accumulate these times. Now, where does moderate stop and intense start? There's not a great line there, but moderate, can you talk while you're doing it? Intense, usually it's harder to talk. And so that's what we're shooting for over the course of a week. Now, how do we break that up? Again, depending on what expert you read, they may say 20 to 30 minutes a day. 20 minutes a day is about the minimum you want to get. 3 to 5 days per week. Now, if you do quick math, 3 days a week at 20 minutes a day doesn't get you very close to your minimum, but you're trying to accumulate that 150 minutes by doing something on most days of the week. For additional health benefits, you want to up those numbers some. So more like 300 minutes a week of moderate or 150 minutes of intense. So if you don't work more intensely, you don't have to exercise as long if you're worried about that time factor. The good news is bouts of exercise can be as short as 6 or 10 minutes to reach that cumulative amount. So you might say, I don't have 30 minutes of my day to devote to exercise. Can you do 10 minutes in the morning, walk 10 minutes before you start your work day? And at lunch, you eat your lunch, and you take 10 minutes, and you walk outside. In the evening, you go out 10 minutes and you walk the dog, or you take the kids to soccer practice and you walk up and down the sideline while you're waiting on them. We can find those times. But again, the fact that most of it, because we are busy, find smaller increments that add up to what you need. And again, you can do those kinds of things without any equipment, walking, running, and we're going to talk about some other things here in just a moment. Strength training, muscle strengthening exercises, weightlifting is what we think about, some kind of moderate to high intensity. You can use dumbbells. Dumbbells are relatively cheap. Resistance bands are even cheaper. Amazon has them really cheap. You can use body weight. I don't have to spend any money to do strength training exercises in my living room. I don't have to do any of that. How much should we do? You want to do something that's 10 or 12 reps. If you don't know the lingo, a rep, if I'm doing a dumbbell curl, I lift a dumbbell once and put it back down. That's 1 rep. I want to do that 10 to 12 times, take a break and do that 2 or 3 times. Each 10 or 12 of those is a set. Do that 2 or 3 times. And I want to do that twice or more per week. And again, I can go on the cheap with dumbbells, or I can just use body weight. Of course, obviously, if I go to a gym, all of that's, there's way more at a gym than than you would ever need to use. Flexibility, we think of stretching, do that 2 to 3 days per week to help improve your range of motion. You want to hold the stretches about 10 to 30 seconds to the point of tightness, not to the point of pain, the point of tightness. Repeat each stretch 2 to 4 times, so you're getting cumulative about 60 seconds per stretch. Now, there's several types of stretching. I mentioned 2 here, probably the 2 most common. There's static and dynamic. Static means no movement. A static stretch is when I do this and I just hold it. That's a static stretch. Dynamic is where you're stretching while you're moving. This kind of thing. When I'm doing the huggers, this is dynamic. Personally, I like doing dynamic. I think it's beneficial to do dynamic at the start of the exercise and maybe do some static at the end of the exercise. Full disclosure, I'm not very good at doing flexibility exercises, but doing some dynamic exercises to start with helps warm you up, which brings us to that last statement there. Flexibility is most effective if the muscle is warm. So even a little walking around, movement, getting blood flow going, warming up the muscle before you stretch will make it most beneficial. And like I said, I'm not very good at stretching. I know the benefits of it, but you can do these things in front of a screen. You can do these things during the day. While you're at your computer, you can sit there and do stretches. You can do it while you're watching TV, say on the commercials. Well, we all stream now, so we don't watch commercials much anymore, but you can do these kinds of things while you're in front of the TV or you're sitting on the floor playing with the kids. You can do some stretches in between. One that has been neglected and that you may not even be aware of is neuromotor training. And this is especially important in an aging population. I am probably maybe the oldest on this call. I'm one of the oldest people on this call. And this is becoming more important to me as I've realized the benefit of it. Neuromotor training is also known as functional fitness training. It helps us be more efficient in the things we do every day. And so we want to be doing these sorts of things 2 or 3 days per week. And these are things that involve motor skills, balance training, agility, coordination, my gait, those things that start especially to decline as we age. Proprioceptive exercise training is part of this. Proprioception is where we know where we are in space in relation to things and people around us. Quick example, proprioception is critical for a gymnast when they're flipping in the air. They need to know where the ground is. They need to know where the beam is. A diver needs to know where the water is so she doesn't hit it wrong. But even in everyday things, it helps me not walk into people or walk into things. I mean, it helps me know where I am, and it helps with my balance. And so it just improves my physical functioning. You can imagine, just think about balance. And neuromotor training can be very effective at helping to prevent falls in an older population. And we all know that falls in an older population is very dangerous. It often leads to other problems. It may take away independent living. And so neuromotor training, again, as little as 20 to 30 minutes per day, can be very beneficial and very important for quality of life, maintaining independence in older adults. And again, do these things while you are doing other things. Practice standing on one foot while you're waiting for the microwave to finish. If you are watching TV for 30 seconds or till the next commercial, try standing on one foot. Try standing on one foot with your eyes closed. But be sure something is nearby to grab on. You're going to be less balanced with your eyes closed. Practice that. There are the balance pads that you'll see in fitness centers. If you have one of those, try standing on one foot and brushing your teeth. Just those little things that you can do while you're doing other things. For people who are even older than I am, maybe practicing just rising and sitting back down in a chair without holding on. Those things are very important. And even at a younger age to start thinking about maintaining balance. And if you're still, doing recreational athletics, you want to be more agile, you want to be more coordinated. And so these things are used, balance boards, all these kinds of things are used in a lot of young athletes training, but very important in an aging population to improve neuromotor skills. All right, some ways to do exercise that require no equipment. I've said, yes, some of us, we don't want to join a gym, we don't have the money to, there's not one close. FYI, if you do join a gym, if it's not in your traffic pattern, you're probably not going to go. It has to be close or in a direction you go often. So what are some things to do? I don't have the money. I've chosen not to join it. The gyms were all closed during pandemic. Do things, exercises that require no equipment. Body weight exercises. Those have become really popular the last couple of years. Push-ups, sit-ups, planks, Superman poses, yoga poses. I don't know how many of you have done yoga before. I've never been a big fan of it. It's just a preference thing. And my initial mistaken perception of yoga was that's easy. Yoga is not easy. If you've never tried it, pull up a yoga video and try it. It is not easy. But all of that requires no equipment whatsoever. I can do all of that in my home. So there's all kinds of exercise videos online that are free. There's yoga, there's high impact, there's low impact, there's high intensity, low impact. Anything you can think of is out there for free. There's also all kinds of DVDs out there or on demand. I've got some of those as well. Find something you like, but until you find out what you like, pull up something free in your home. Again, this doesn't require you going anywhere. You're not spending extra gas. You're not spending extra time going somewhere. I don't have to pack a bag to go to the gym. There's so much we can do in our home. On strength training, you have a 10-pound bag of potatoes, you lift those, do curls with those. I mean, there's all ways to be creative in our homes to do things. Some tips, I would encourage you to use a physical activity monitor if you have access to one. I'm not saying go out and spend $300 or whatever app. I don't have Apple Watch, but whatever an Apple Watch costs, I'm not saying go buy one. Many of you probably have an Apple Watch, or you have a Garmin, or you have a Samsung watch. There's a physical activity monitors, or you have an app on your phone. They're kind of fun. They can be kind of motivating. My Garmin running watch will tell me to move every so often. Sometimes I want to throw it across the room. One morning I'd run a marathon that morning, that afternoon it's telling me to move. I'm like, I've moved plenty for today, thank you. But use some kind of activity monitor. It's just kind of fun, motivating. Fitbit, and so they've come down in price so much, but they're just kind of fun. Throughout your workday, set an alarm to stand up. Have something that goes off that reminds you to stand up. Even if that's all you do, stand up in place, sit back down. Or you stop and you take a 10-minute break to go check your text messages, or you're gonna take a phone call, stand up, walk around your house while you do that. Like I said, make it a point that you do take a stroll around your residence once an hour. And that may say, well, that seems silly. It's to get that active couch potato, get you away from your screen for even brief periods. If you have an opportunity and a setup that you can use a standing desk, that's great. I don't have a good setup for that. I would love to have a standing desk. Again, something to get you in an upright position. And again, schedule your workout. However, if you're going to do, you've got 30 minutes, you're going to do it, or you got 3 10-minute blocks, or whatever you're going to do. You're going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go do it before your workday begins. Whatever works, schedule it in. What can you all think of some tips? We're not quite, I've got a couple more things for you here as we close it out, but can you think of some other tips to help you with exercise?
Kathy, it always helps me to have an exercise partner.
Yes. Yes. If you know somebody's there waiting on you, you're less likely to not show or to not do it. Yes. And it's just more fun.
Jackie said a foot peddler under your desk.
Yes, that's very good. Yeah, one of those, it's just the pedals. It's like bicycle pedals you put under your desk to have some movement going on there while you're sitting.
Karen also says, find a partner. Stephanie said, set a goal to move 10 minutes a day. Julie says, finding a buddy or family member to do it with. Linnea, I save my favorite podcast for my walking hour.
Great.
KK, I've scheduled work meetings while walking. Heather and I used to do this. Dina, put an alarm on a phone to remind you. I love the schedule it idea too. And Brandy says audiobook while walking, and that's what I do.
Yeah, that's great. You know, and not that I'm saying you should work while you're exercising, but if you've got something to listen to, you're working, you're still, you need to listen to this podcast, or you need to listen to this article. I mean, you can, I have a friend that's what she used to always read her journal articles, riding her stationary bicycle. So yeah, I mean, you can make it part of your work day even. So figure out what works for you. Those are great suggestions, and just figure out what works for you, and embrace that and continue to do that. So an accountability partner does help a lot. And even if you like to exercise alone, just letting someone else know that you're doing it can help. And like I said, those of you who have kids who are active in various sports and things, do something while they're at their practice. So there's lots of ways to work it in. You guys have some great ideas.
Nanette also says, I love using my Wii.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 Video games have gotten much better at moving. I mean, the early video games, you just sat there the whole time. But now you've got, the dance videos and the Wii and all those things. Those are great. And they've gotten much better at getting kids and adults up moving. All right. I want to mention something called metabolic equivalents, or they're abbreviated MET. That's kind of a mouthful, but it's an indication of metabolism of based on our energy output. And if you've used many cardio machines at a gym, you've probably seen it gives you a MET reading. If you're running at 5 miles per hour, it says you're working at this many METs. Well, what does that mean? And you probably figured out, well, the harder I work, the higher the METs, the easier I work, the lower the METs. And so, yeah, I want to work at a higher MET value to get more bang for my buck. But what most of us really want to know is, how many calories am I burning? Well, there's a way to figure out MET value and then figure out how many calories you're burning. So stay with me here just a moment. I've got the formula listed there. You take the MET value of the activity, and you have to know that somehow. And that's what I'm going to show you here in a moment. And you multiply it by a constant of 3.5 multiplied by your body weight in kilograms. Your body weight in kilograms is pounds divided by 2.2. Or you pull it up online and find a conversion factor for it there, but it's pounds divided by, or if you want to do quick and dirty, pounds divided by 2. And then divide by a constant of 200, you get calories burned per minute. So let's say we've got a 150-pound male, which is about 68 kilograms, walking at 3.5 miles per hour. That has a MET value of 4. I mean, that is, we know that that's determined. And he's going to do that for 1 hour. So 4 times 3.5 times 68 divided by 200. He's going to burn about 5 calories per minute. He's going to do this exercise bout for an hour. So he's going to be close to burning 300 calories in that hour. Okay, so that's what I said. Most of us really want to know, bottom line, how many calories can I burn doing this? I'm working at 4 METs. That doesn't really translate to much for me. So I want to know how many calories. Some people, that's how they do their workouts. I want to burn 300 calories. Whatever I do, I want to burn 300 calories today. So the link I've given you there, the compendium of physical activities, lists pretty much every activity you can think of under the sun and gives you a MET value for it. It has all the sports stuff. It has running at 5 miles per hour and running at 6 miles per hour and walking at 2 miles per hour and riding your bike at 10 miles per hour. It has all the sports stuff, but it has daily activity stuff. It has things like, what's the cost when I'm standing at my kitchen sink washing dishes? What's the cost of doing laundry? I'm going to wash my car by hand out in my driveway. What's the metabolic cost of that? So it has all these cool daily activity MET values. It has things like, what's the MET value of dressing a deer in the field? That's probably not one I'm going to use. But there's all kinds of your occupational, what's the occupational cost of doing this? And so look up, you don't like to walk, you don't want to go for a walk, you don't want to go for a bike ride. I want to go work in my garden. Look up and see what gardening, what's the MET value? And you can figure out how many calories I'm burning gardening. And so it's got everything under the sun. So this is a good link to just, and there's all kinds, I mean, you can Google MET values, but this one is put together by scientists. I trust the numbers in this. And it's just, like I said, it's comical to read through what all it is listed there. What does it cost to butcher an animal? I'm just like, all these things, like I've never even thought about these. It gives you MET values on these. So find out, what do you like to do for hobbies? How many calories am I burning? All right, real quickly, stress. Stress takes a toll on us being fit and well. We have acute stress, we have chronic stress. Acute stress is things that usually come along and they resolve quickly. We've misplaced our keys. We have a bad day at work. Car didn't start this morning, but they're resolved quickly. And so, we may have had we would have had some elevated heart rate, low blood pressure, maybe a little headache, stomach upset, but then, okay, I found the keys, on to the next thing. Usually resolves quickly. That's not usually too much of a toll on our body. Chronic stress, more so, things that don't resolve. Somebody has a chronic illness. I'm in a bad relationship that's not resolved. Every day at work is a bad day. Whatever it is, then that starts to take a toll on us more. They don't resolve quickly. We have some of the same symptoms, but they're ongoing. And this also tends to now play into our sleep and affect our immune system. So we want to do anything we can to avoid stress as well. That's another benefit of exercise. It helps reduce stress. And related to this, then we talk about sleep. Stress interrupts sleep. Most adults need about 7 or more hours of sleep per night. It does help with the immune system. It aids in weight maintenance or in weight loss. It may reduce our risk for serious health problems. Tends to lower stress. We all know we think better when we've had enough sleep. Our mood's better. If you are into athletic performance, even at recreational level, we do better when we sleep well. Some things to do for that: have a routine that you do day in and day out. When you go to bed, if you can't go to sleep, don't toss and turn for very long before you get up and do something else. Don't take your electronics to bed. Again, these are suggestions. You make your choices. Be aware of caffeine consumption. For some of us, it keeps us awake at night. Some people it doesn't. Maybe you need to stop drinking caffeine by noon, kind of see how that plays into your sleep pattern. Have a comfortable bedroom. For many people, that means kind of being cool on the cool side. Go to bed, get up about the same time all the time, even weekends. Get some physical activity during the day. You may need to play with that a little bit. Exercising right before bedtime may not be great. That may kind of hype you up and you can't go to sleep. So see, where do I need to sleep? Naps, there's some debate there whether they're useful or not. Real long naps, probably going to interfere with sleep at night. Shorter power naps, there's some information out there that they may be pretty helpful. And so that's a little bit debatable. And so just some takeaways here. This first one, lack of sleep and long work days are not badges of honor. They have been for years in our American culture. They are not badges of honor. They are not healthy. You need to schedule time for activity like you do any other important task. Our nutrition, we can't out-train our bad diet, so I can't just exercise more and eat anything I want. But small changes can yield benefits, and just being consistent is the key. All right, we've got just a couple of minutes here. What questions or comments do you have from that?
Kathy, we got lots of comments that just say thank you. It was super helpful, wonderful. Just lots of positive feedback here. And I want to remind everybody before you leave that we have a form that we would love for you to fill out and give us some feedback. I just put that in the chat. So if you don't mind taking just a few minutes before you leave and fill in that form out for us, we really appreciate it.